It is Friday afternoon. Welcome to the Nutmeg Tavern. We're having a nice time here at the tavern. I'm your host, John Townsend, and we're here. Ryan's here today, and we're back on location. Last week we did live from Fort Frederick in Maryland. Ryan's behind the bar here. He's going to be making the drink for us today. It's going to be good, right?
Yes.
Have you tried it out yet?
No.
It'll be great. I'm sure it'll be great. Behind the scenes, the guys who twist all the knobs and talk and on the chat and all that. Aaron is on the console.
Yep. Hey, everyone.
There he is. And Kyle is in the question seat, and he's taking those questions, finding the real fun questions to talk about. So we'll have fun in today's. So welcome. Let's all relax. Let's get I've got my side drink, not the main drink. Take a nice sip out of our. I think Ryan just tried the drink for the day. Do we have a question or two to start out the day with?
Yes, we do. What did people usually season their cast iron cookware with? In the time period today, we use lots of fun stuff. I really like using the flaxseed oil because it really cooks down to a nice hard surface. If you want to check out that video, there's a seasoning cast iron video on the channel. It's been quite a while, but it's a real good video for seasoning cast iron. In the time period, they more likely would have just used standard oils that were available to them all the time they were cooking with. So, they might use bacon grease or something. Might not work as well, but it's instantly available. And once you got that seasoned, you would continue to cook, just wipe it out, and you wouldn't have to worry about seasoning that over and over again. Was cast iron the most used material for pots and pans?
It really depends on where you're at in the time period, because cast iron is not the most popular thing. It really has some disadvantages, but it has some wonderful advantages. By the time you get to the 19th century, it is what's kind of taken over in cookware, especially cookware that doesn't have to be transported. It's heavy, but it's also virtually indestructible, so it's really good for that, and their techniques for making it got better and better. But earlier on in the time period, you'd be using tin vessels. Very early on, you would use like a bronze, so something like a big kettle kind of piece that you would have, say, cast heavy piece. Instead of being cast iron, it would be cast bronze or brass, but that would poison people. So they moved to cast iron in the 18th century, and especially in the 19th century.
How common were ceramic and glass makers in various towns and cities? Were they just in large cities?
Well, pottery, ceramic pieces, pottery's being made everywhere, and every place sort of has its local pottery that's being made. The inexpensive stuff, the stuff that's getting broken constantly. And then, glass is one of those, again, depends on the time period, depends on the place, but it's there's the girls. It's pretty common to want to create a glassworks in your local area, and they had glassworks in North America, but that was much more sort of a specialty thing. Isn't happening just in every little burg like a local pottery would be.
Where were coffee beans primarily imported from?
Today we get coffee imported from all over the world, special places, Hawaii and all over South America, African coffees, and all these wonderful places to get coffee. It was undoubtedly much more restricted in its locality where it was coming from. Some of that's coming from the Caribbean. I'm not sure about all that. I'm not a super coffee buff for the 18th century or 17th century where some of that early stuff is, but definitely it's a much more restricted place about where those coffees are coming from, and undoubtedly they didn't have anything like the varieties we have today.
Were there any state fairs of sorts in the U.S. in the 18th century, and if so, what kind of entertainment would they have offered?
Well, they would have fairs, but they wouldn't have necessarily a state fair, right? But different villages and different towns would have fairs sometimes that would happen in special times of the year, and then that sort of market day of the town, which is kind of similar to that when people come in from the outlying areas to come in and sell things like a farmer's market. So there's both of those sorts of things going on, but not sort of as often, let's say once a year, a great fair like we are expected, like we have today.
I need some 17th century knitting patterns. What do you guys know about knitting?
Wow. Not a lot. And knitting patterns, I think, are much more difficult. Usually those things are based upon extant examples that you can find in museums, and people have done the counts on those so that they recreate the patterns. But we don't have that same kind of thing happening today, do we? Or in the 18th century, they didn't have those kind of written out patterns that we would expect today. So normally it's you've got to look at period pieces and then reinvent the wheel. Am I creating my own here? Is that what's going on here?
Well, I kind of wanted to present it like this is your water, this is your rum ration.
There we go. So today's drink is grog, and grog is this great naval thing. We've been doing some naval cooking episodes, and we've got a few more coming up in the future. And I'm always doing naval reading. It's one of my favorite things to dig into in historical things. It's very rich. Rich piece of history to sort of delve into, and it just keeps going, right? And grog is this great thing where when you're close to home with your sailing ship, you would have water to drink. And if you were really close to home, you would have beer. And the sailor's ration mentioned that we talked about even in that Burgoo episode, a gallon of beer a day. But beer doesn't last a long time on board ship, and you have to move to a different drink. Water goes bad pretty quickly. Beer can run out. Beer goes bad. And so sometime in the 17th century, especially right after the British took control of, was it Barbados? One of those Caribbean islands. They got access to rum and consistent access to that. And so they started using rum as a substitute for beer. And they would just sort of issue out a Jill. Was it a Jill or two Jills?
Well, it just depends on when you're talking about.
I think it was.
They wilted it down as they
right.
went.
But early on, they would issue them this whole Jill of rum a day or 2 Jills of rum a day, and then people would get drunk over that. So they decided to come up with it was right there in the 1740s, 1750s, where they came up with this concept of no, we're going to dilute that so that they don't save it all and then have a whole bunch and then get super duper drunk. So we're going to dilute it with water and then it will go bad. So they have to drink it right away. So they came up with this grog. So they have 4 water grog, a mixture of 4 to 1 water to rum. And then maybe even for punishment, they might say, no, we're going to dilute it even more. Even though you'll still get the same amount of rum, we'll dilute it with more water. Modern recipes tend to be, or the cocktail version of grog is a stouter mixture. So it would be like 2 to 1 or whatever. So what's the mixture we've got here?
So this is a 4 to 1.
This is a 4 to 1.
And it's funny, in my reading, they had to actually be a witness mixing it in front of an officer.
Yes. Make sure that you're watching so that it all gets mixed properly, and they did not want people to save it so that they had access too much at a time.
And so the idea here is that, worst case scenario, you've got your rum and your water.
Right.
You might be lucky enough to have citrus.
Right.
You might even be lucky enough to have some cinnamon or nutmeg to put in it. So I figured you could try it at different stages.
I will try it just straight up like this, which is probably most likely what it would have been for the sailor. He wouldn't have had a nice, beautiful glass to drink it out of. Watered down, though. It's nice and watered down. It's the kind of drink that I can hack. I can drink that without it causing
startling your vocal cords.
Yes, without it startling my vocal cords.
they certainly had citrus that they would carry on board for medicinal purposes and sometimes just for flavoring. And really, one of the most famous kind of drinks that shows up a lot, punch, for the 18th century is quite often something very similar to this, but citrus, a little lemon juice, a little lime juice, they would add in there. Later on, they understood that it had medicinal purposes. Early on, probably not so much. It's good with a little bit of lemon in there. I like that. There we go.
Do you know why it was called grog? Like where the name?
Specifically, there was the admiral. I think he was named Vernon, and his nickname was Grog because he wore a specific kind of fabric. That was the short term for that. He was kind of famous for wearing a particular kind of outfit all the time, and so they named the drink after him, and it was his nickname. So it's kind of complicated, but
well, they were super unhappy with this guy
because he watered down.
Right, so it's kind of like a mock. Like, oh, you're gonna make us drink this, and you look ridiculous when you wear that, so we're gonna tie the two together. That's kind of what I took from it.
I think it needs some nutmeg too. I think that would really.
And from what I read, if you add nutmeg to this, then it becomes bumbo.
Probably in some sugar too.
Yeah.
There we go. Now it's got some little floaties. You know it's good when stuff is floating on the top.
I didn't know that's how you could tell it was good.
Right. Well, that's, when the stuff floats to the bottom or it's floating at the top.
Oh.
Extra flavor.
Okay.
Did you have anything else to add to?
I'm going to try it.
Oh, you haven't tried it.
I don't have any citrus in here yet.
You want me to toss you some?
I've got some.
Okay.
I want to try it without.
What do you think?
I think it tastes like water. I'm assuming that now it's going to taste like lemon water.
How about some donations, or do we want
go ahead.
Keep going on the drink? We're good for the drink for now?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do some donations real quick. And again, thanks everyone who's donated so far. Planet Express, thank you. Did any recipes from the British colonies make it to Europe outside of North America? David Dinelli, thank you.
Thank you.
How frequently were Continental soldiers under-equipped? Some accounts from Joseph Plum Martin and others make it sound like soldiers never had enough or the right supplies. Teddy the Fourth, thank you. Did children use tobacco products? Yuseke, I believe. Hello, this is my first time joining your stream.
Hey.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Glad you're here.
Thanks for being here.
Perkio Flarg, thank you for everything you do. Thanks for your donation. Okay, let's go through these real quick. Recipes from the British colonies make it to Europe outside of North America.
I'll say probably, but I don't think they were looked on to any great extent positively. England in the time period wasn't known for any super special food. It's like, oh, we're going to go out of our way for that. Normally they, took food on from other parts of the world. So, there was definitely an influence of, say, Indian foods because of the colonization of India. They certainly were interested in Italian food and Spanish and mostly French cuisine in Great Britain during the 18th century. But it going the other direction, probably not nearly so much. Something like a boiled pudding just didn't excite the rest of the world. They really weren't interested in that.
And then how frequently were Continental soldiers under-equipped?
I think it's very clear by most of the records we've got that they were fairly under-equipped or very under-equipped in most of the war. And the Joseph Plum Martin book is just they never have enough of anything. So he's always complaining about whether it's food or whether it's clothing. They're always under-equipped, and that's probably a pretty standard thought because of the way they were supplied and the sort of age of the
the country, as it were, that it was difficult to have enough money to get all the things you would need to support all those troops.
And then
Tobacco for children.
Did children?
You have any thoughts on that?
You know, I've been thinking about that since they asked. I don't have any direct accounts. I mean,
Right.
your head. You want to say, oh, of course, but I can't say that I've read it.
Well, we know women were using tobacco.
Right.
Women were. But children and younger ages, that is not as...
I think some of that's fuzzy because of when is a child no longer a child. You know, it's a lot different.
And that was certainly thought of very, very differently in that time period.
So now if we saw somebody that was, 12 years old smoking tobacco, that kid's using tobacco. But I don't think that somebody that age was really thought of a kid that much. There was a transition happening.
No, it probably had a lot more to do with whether they could afford it. And children didn't really have their own, funds. Whereas like a small beer, that's everybody in the family is drinking that. That is the Kool-Aid of the day, right? So everybody's drinking that indiscriminately. Versus tobacco, well, that's special for the people who are earning money, and children aren't necessarily earning money, or they wouldn't spend it on that. So they weren't as interested in tobacco and probably didn't use it as much. Not necessarily a rule within society, just it isn't appropriate for their income level, I guess.
I haven't read anything about children helping with farming tobacco either, because that's where my head goes. Oh, they're farming it, they're probably, but I haven't read that either.
No, I haven't either.
And then just real quick, Scarlet Rose, thank you. Love your show. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Jim Lindley, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
And that's all I got.
great.
Oh wait, one more real quick. Grandma's Place, thank you.
Grandma's?
Thanks for the meat pie recipes. They were wonderful when made with raccoon.
Okay.
Okay, that sounds great. Raccoon.
Let me tell you,
Yeah?
I'm not a big fan of this 4-to-1 grog.
No? It needs a little
If
pick
it was
me up.
6-to-1, I know I'd be really grumpy.
Right. If you were
I
a 6
would
to
be
1,
so
you would
upset.
say,
And
hey.
they were like making me mix it right in front of them, and that sort of like.
yeah,
that
because
It's really petty.
I know
of
it.
them.
I would be so salty.
yeah, but they know. If it was punishment, they didn't want you to go taking your little tot of rum back and holding 4 or 5 days worth, and then having a nice big tumbler of rum, and then you'd be all drunk up in the rigging, falling down, breaking your neck, and then they'd be out of sailor.
I don't know what I was reading something that was saying in the 1730s, 1740s they were getting a pint a day. That can't be right, can it?
No, I think it's a half a pint.
Okay.
It's a half a pint a day, so a full cup of, and their rum was probably, this is like 40, right? This is 80 proof.
Right. Yeah.
And theirs likely was, at least the British Navy stuff was stiffer than that.
94.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like something like 90.
So if you had a half pint,
Yeah.
and it was straight, that could get you acting a little silly, probably. Yeah.
Guarantee
Acted
it.
a little silly.
Guarantee it for me.
Yeah, all you had to do was sniff that mint julep.
Yeah, well, I don't know what he put in
It's
that
gonna
mint
haunt you
julep.
forever, isn't it? We're gonna revisit that. We're gonna have mint juleps once a month. You got questions, Kyle?
I do.
All right.
Let's see. Why did the Navy end the grog ration very early?
Well, apparently the U.S. Navy stopped the grog ration in the mid-Civil War, 1862, something like that. The British Navy didn't end their grog ration until the 1970.
Yeah. Right.
And
1970?
1970.
Yeah, like 100 years
Correct.
later than U.S.
But they continued to sort of lessen it. I think it fell by half at one point. They were thinking about getting rid of it much earlier, sometime in the early 20th century, and then they, instead of getting rid of it, they just went down by half.
But it wasn't grog then, right? It was just rum, wasn't it?
I don't know.
Somebody in the chat might know the answer to that.
Right. The part of that is temperance movement.
especially in the United States, say like the Merchant Sailor Service, they were it's like, hey guys, we'll give you extra tobacco, we'll give you free tea and coffee. No, we're not going to give you rum for safety issues. They realized that it just plain was, it was just unsafe, especially if people kept that back and got roaring drunk and then went on deck. Being a sailor is dangerous enough, especially in that time period, age of sail. It is hard work, and you really have to have your wits about you, or you will end up dead. So I think that was part of what was happening with that.
You were talking about your naval reading list.
Yeah. I got a new book. Unfortunately, I don't have that right here in front of me, but there's a wonderful selection of things that are being printed in the 18th century, in the 19th century. Falconer's Dictionary is fun to just read through. One of the books that I'm reading through is a novel by I think his name is Muriat. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. He was a sailor for about 20 years, and then he went ahead and wrote a book called Midshipman Easy. And it's fictional, but he was a sailor and he knew exactly what that was like, what it was like, right there in the early 19th century. So it's an interesting read, especially if you've already read something like the Master and Commander series, or you've seen Master and Commander, right? And you know that that's historical fiction. But what did Patrick O'Brian base these things on? How does he write a book and it feels just like the early 19th century? Well, Midshipman Easy was written in that time period by someone who's a sailor, and so you can kind of get a taste for what that literature was like in the 19th century and written by somebody who actually was a sailor. So those are a couple pieces. I'll think about talking about some of those in the next live stream.
What kind of rum did they ration? White, gold, spiced?
It certainly wasn't spiced. That's a fairly new invention.
A lot of the recipes for using rum are mentioning gold rum. I don't know if that's what they were rationing or not.
Okay. What was the most commonly used wood for naval ships?
Oak. Oak is the big thing you're going to be making ships out of, and that's one of the reasons why there isn't a whole lot of giant oak forests in Great Britain or Ireland, because they used them all up making all those ships.
What were churches like back then?
What were churches like? Well, there was a lot of different kinds of churches, and each one of them has their own flavor or personality character. So I don't know how to answer that beyond that.
Were they held in church buildings mostly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then probably a typical set type of service flow that is going
Yeah, a very
different.
regular, orderly service is going to be very consistent with that time period, except for something like a Quaker church, which is very, very different. And that's certainly very prominent in the 18th century. So there's a lot of different kinds of church things that are happening in that time period, and a lot of variation.
Was yogurt commonly eaten?
I've never run into that in English cookery or in North American, standard cookery. It may certainly be happening in other places, but it might be called something else that I don't recognize.
Were 18th century taverns a place where you could stay the night at, or just a place to get a meal or a drink?
Quite often they were a place to stay the night at, and they were originally intended for this idea of, they were sort of specific for travelers, and travelers need a place to stay the night, they need a place to eat, and they would also serve alcoholic beverages because that was just the standard thing everyone did in that time period. So and in fact, in some places they wanted to discourage locals from going there, and they would do that by various rules and regulations. So they were mainly for travelers, and they would have accommodations.
How was water purified back in the time period?
You add rum to it. Other than that, they did not have much water purification that was going on. Not much at all.
It's going to take more rum than that.
Yeah. What?
Jeez.
This is wonderful.
I have a whole bunch of donations I'd like to read. If
Go
that's
ahead,
okay.
Aaron.
Thanks, everyone. We appreciate it.
Is that sugar?
You want some?
Oh,
I'm
here,
okay.
I'll switch the camera back.
I'm trying to get.
Caught you. Okay, what was the last? Last one was the raccoon meat pie, I think. The last one. Rila 73, thank you. Would a mucket be correct for the 1700s, or is it more 1800s? And if not, what would it be instead? Central Florida Pickers, thank you. Awesome videos. I play these when I'm listing on eBay. Nice.
Cool.
Thank you.
Kind of cloudy, maybe. Thank you. Max are cool. Thank you.
There he is. Yep.
Thank you.
The Errant Venture. Thank you. How were hull repairs managed at sea?
Oh yeah.
And then Shannon McPheron. Thank you. Love watching y'all and made several of the receipts shown. I live near Patrick Henry's Scotchtown, which is a great place to visit. Wink, wink.
Huh. I don't know if I've heard of Scotchtown. Very interesting. Okay, what was that first question?
Okay, so
There's more sugar
Would
than
a-
rum now in your drink. I
No,
just
there
noticed
is
that.
not. I just sprinkled a little in there.
would a mucket be correct for the 1700s?
I use the word mucket all the time, and I use it as a generic doodle whopper. So I am not sure exactly what you're referring to.
A mucket, from what I'm reading, is
Yes.
a fresh water mussel.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. No clue. I have no clue.
Stumped him.
Wow. So it's not a doodle whopper or a
I thought it was a
dingle
doodle whopper for sure.
Could it have been a typo and they meant musket?
Musket, maybe, but mucket is a word, and it has to do with the ocean. So let's see.
Well, what was the actual
I'll see if
question?
they
Yeah.
throw
What?
it.
How to read the
Would it be correct for the 1700s, or is it more 1800s? And if not, what would it be instead?
Okay, so we don't know for sure about mucket, but what about musket?
Musket
Yeah, we'll see if
definitely is a term for a military firearm in the 18th century. Generally, almost always a smooth bore meant for mainline troops. Not a specialty thing, but everybody gets a gun. They get a musket, and I think that's a shortening of musketoon. But I don't even know the etymology of musketoon. So
And smooth bore as opposed to rifled?
right, not rifled. So
And what would they call rifled? Would they just call it
a rifle.
Okay.
Yes, a rifle.
I'm still going with the clams.
Okay.
No.
Yes.
Okay.
I like mucket myself, and
Right.
I just use doodle whopper.
So we have a few more. I'd like to do a couple of these real quick. So really nice donations. Julie Stevens, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very nice
Thank you.
donation. Nutmeg for life.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very nice
Thank you.
donation. A cup of grog for every man and a bottle for the shanty man.
Yes.
Thank you. GJKNU something 66. Thank you. As a chef, I really enjoy your channel.
Thank you.
What is your favorite cooking technique or dish that still has significant culinary influence today? Sue O'Connor, thank you. What do you know of counterfeit nutmeg?
Oh, yeah. That's interesting stuff.
And then
Yeah.
Recon Phil, thank you. It was great meeting you. We were parked near you. Must have
Yay.
been at Fort Fred.
Okay.
Yes.
So let me try to.
Yeah,
I
we
know
talked
who we're
to them
talking
for a
about
while.
there. Yeah.
Twice.
All right.
Sure.
Let me try to. Where do we want to start? Let's do the hull repairs at sea.
Yeah. So your hulls, you're maybe you've been through a storm. You have to repair your hull. Maybe you've been engaged with the enemy and you have giant shot holes in your vessel. It can be very, very difficult to fix your ship. You can imagine also as the boards go, or the boards are going to be the word I'm going to use. The sheathing of the ship goes around the outside and it curves, and all those are under tension. They're held in, and by nails and trunnions and all sorts of things. But if one of those pops loose, you end up with a giant hole in your ship, and because the board has straightened out, and you end up, it's called opening up a butt end, and very hard to get that leak under control. You can try stuffing things into it. Sometimes they would have a sail that they would go from the outside and they'd try to father the leak. So they'd take a sail and they'd run it on the outside, and hopefully the water pressure would push against that and keep it from leaking too badly. Shot holes, they might have plugs that were the size of different sorts of shot so that they could hammer that into the hole. There's a great section in Master and Commander where you can see him in the hold of the ship banging in the plug to plug up these shot holes in the ship. But they wouldn't always come in through a nice little round hole that was perfectly easily pluggable. And so you would have all these different ways that you would try to get at the leak to fix it. You'd be pumping the water out, and sometimes you didn't have any choice but to pump and do your very best to keep your ship from sinking from underneath you. There are times when your ship just sorts of wants to fall apart, and you would wrap ropes around the outside of the ship, and you would frap the ship. You would just put a whole lot of rope to hold it together. Can you imagine? That would be scary, having your ship wanting to sink from underneath you, and you're just doing your very best to stay afloat.
So are they kind of going down on the exterior of the
Yeah,
boat?
they would sometimes have to go on the exterior of the ship, but many times that was impossible, and you'd either do the work from the inside, or you would have to father the leak from the outside using canvas and then try to get to a dry dock where you can actually bring the ship up out of the water so that you could repair it. But there was just only so much you could do, and many ships just they sank right from underneath you.
Let's go through the other ones. That's awesome info, though. That should be a challenge video. John, get in the water and fix this.
No,
First we have to build a boat.
Yeah,
Right.
If you give me a ship, I'll do the challenge.
Keep those
Right.
super chats
If you-
coming.
If you
Build
give
us
us
a
a
boat.
ship, we'll shoot a hole in it and then fix it.
Okay, so we did that one. Oh, favorite cooking technique or dish that still has significant culinary influence today?
Wow, that's a deep question, and I have no idea how I want to answer that.
This one made me laugh because I immediately thought John's favorite cooking technique is deep fat fry.
Oh yeah.
You're giving everything away, man. And that still has there are some interesting techniques that are kind of lost. Boiling all these things that they did in the time period that we don't do because. So we don't like boiled food. In fact, it's sort of made fun of anything that's boiled. And they were boiling everything in the time period. So I think one of the ones that I enjoy, everyone is enjoying, and they called them a ragu in the time period. Sort of like a stewing with a really thick sauce would be where I would go with that. Just off the top of my head, I think ragus are great.
Counterfeit nutmeg.
Counterfeit nutmegs. So there's a story about taking wooden nutmegs. You can take a little block of wood and you can kind of carve out something that looks a lot like a nutmeg and color it. But nutmegs, apparently that was only a thing when nutmegs really weren't that expensive. So what was the point of doing it? By the time you spent all the time making a fake nutmeg, you could have just bought a regular nutmeg and it would be... It's sort of like a wooden nutmeg cost more than a real one. That might have been a thing early on when nutmegs were much more expensive. The trade was very restricted, and nutmeg was being grown only in its very original environment, so that it made it a much more expensive. There was a great quantity of counterfeiting or let's say faking up of foodstuffs in the 18th century, fake wines, fake tea, fake coffee that they would try to pass off as a real thing for money. Nutmeg, that seems like a strange thing to try to. And besides, all you got to do is grind it a little bit, and you can smell it, and you know it's nutmeg.
Well, but you're talking about doing fake wine or some fake tea for money, not out of necessity. So we're not talking like
Right.
rye coffee. And
Right. No, I'm talking about counterfeit,
Okay.
something you're trying to pass off as a real thing to earn money versus an ersatz or replacement item like rye coffee.
Do we want to go over the drink real quick? There's a lot more people
Yeah, so
in the chat.
we've got the drink for today is grog, based on the idea of we're doing some naval recipes. So we thought we'd do a naval grog today. This one has been sort of supplemented by some additional items. I think I'm starting to feel it. This is 4-to-1 grog, four parts water. I can do it. 4 parts water, 1 part rum, with a little bit of lemon juice, which sometimes they might have done for flavoring. For the doctor might have said, hey, for anti-scorbutic properties, we don't want you to get scurvy. We're going to put a little bit of lime juice or a little bit of lemon juice in there. That would have been probably a later thing. And then if somebody had the money, they might put a little bit of sugar in it, and they would be getting very close to a punch or a bumbo, sort of mixed drink of the time period. But 4-to-1 grog, hey, it sneaks up on you. At least somebody like me. You could probably drink a gallon of 4-to-1 grog and not even notice it.
But now let's be serious. Before you
I am
anything
serious.
to it, before you added anything to it, and it was just rum and water, could you really taste the rum?
Yes.
Like, really?
Yes. You've heard of lightweights? I'm a featherweight.
No, I'm not talking about. I'm not talking about feeling it, just tasting it.
Yes.
For me, it was like, oh, this is a lot like there's something in my water, not like I've got alcohol. You know.
Okay, I'm gonna go with the yes. It felt like slightly adulterated water.
Okay, there we go. So we can see how the sailors would have been very upset by this, because most people that drink alcohol want to taste their alcohol. I'd say, maybe not. Not if you're drinking, like Cosmopolitans or something like that, but most people that drink, they're used to drinking straight
Not
alcohol.
everyone drinks straight bourbon.
No, not
all
everyone.
The time,
I know.
Like
I understand.
some people I know.
All the time. I'm just saying that if you're used to drinking straight alcohol and you have that taste, and you enjoy that,
Yeah, you're thinking.
and then all of a sudden
is
somebody
that?
says, no, you've got to dilute this, you would be upset.
Yeah.
And then they say, oh, no, you've been extra bad today.
Yeah.
You have to have 6 parts to 4 parts. That would make you
6 parts to 1 part. Yeah.
6, yes, as opposed to 4 parts.
Yes.
That would make you so mad.
Yeah.
I would be
say,
mad.
Why are you giving me this just water?
Right.
Yeah.
I was like, why am I on this ship? I signed up so I could get rum every day.
Well, at least they gave you something.
I guess so.
Okay.
I have a feeling Ryan would be walking the plank, like really quick. Oh man! Hey, and somebody dropped in what a mucket is.
Oh,
It is
good.
a metal bush pot with a lid that was issued in the Civil War.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of
times.
that.
About a
bucket term,
6-cup capacity.
sure. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for that well of knowledge.
Can you find that, Aaron?
It's spelled the same as what he looked up earlier, so
So what? Describe it one more time.
it is a metal bush pot with a lid.
Okay.
Yeah. I imagine the copper boiler,
Right.
but maybe bigger.
Okay.
And it's his typical cooking kettle of the time period. Yeah.
Well, there you go. Questions?
Yeah.
All right.
Let's do it.
I was wondering what the difference between officers' food and soldiers' rations. Would the aides de camp eat the same as the officers they were serving under?
I'm gonna guess here, to a certain extent, because it's usually officers are using their own means to have their own food. Just like officers of a ship, officers of the Navy, if they want to eat well, they are providing their own food, and everybody's dealing with that everybody above sort of the standard soldiers, standard sailors, and the sergeants or warrant officers just above them, and then other people are getting paid enough to supplement their food. So either they are using whatever the rations are plus nicer things, or more likely with officers, all their own food. They're supplying all their own food. So an aide de camp, depending on that level of what they're getting paid, what their own resources are, they're gonna get as much food on their own as they are capable of doing.
What is your favorite firearm from the colonial times and why?
Oh, that is so hard. There's so many really very interesting weapons, and all of them I want. So that's very, very tricky.
Well, you can't have all of them, John. You must pick one.
I don't want one. I don't want one. If you've ever read any of the Sharp's rifles, you want a Baker rifle. You want one bad. I know you do. So there's Baker rifles. Those are cool, and I want one. I love the long rifles that are made in that late 18th century time period, especially when you get to that transitional. They call it sometimes transitional period of those sort of 1770s sort of long rifles. They're so beautiful. They're so wonderful. They are works of art. Brown Besses are a great weapon to play with and are fun to use. There's nothing like throwing a 75 caliber ball out there. That's a fun weapon to use. So I don't know. And I really want like a 9-pounder cannon too. So
can you shoot right-handed? Have you had success with that?
Shooting right-handed, or I'm left-handed. I do a lot of things right-handed, but shooting a gun is not one of them.
Okay.
So I can shoot a right-handed gun. It's just the lock is right there in my face. I do it.
You'll be all right.
Right. So it catches your hat or your hair on
We'll
fire.
fix it in post.
Yeah. No problem.
Muzzle flash burns your face off.
Hey, real quick, we need to talk, and we need to thank Fort Frederick folk.
Yeah. So we were at Fort Frederick. I'm sorry, the grog is getting to me. I'm losing track of where I'm at. We were at Fort Frederick, and we had so many people come up. Fort Bumper, and we had the recon, whatever his name was. So many people. Thank you all for coming up, saying hi, shaking hands, saying hey. Jason, Josh. Sorry,
Josh
I keep
Faust.
saying Jason. Josh did such a fine job. So many other folks there at Fort Frederick. If you're ever in that Fort Frederick area, it is just an amazing site. You want to definitely go and check it out.
Yeah.
We've got people there at the site interpreting all the time. Matthew, thank you. But everyone that came up and talked to us, it was wonderful to have that interaction. So was there anybody else that I missed?
Oh, that couple from Baltimore that had our T-shirts on, that was neat because you could see them coming.
Yeah, there was a
way
nutmeg
off.
on my nutmeg T-shirt and a kettle T-shirt, and whew, I wish I could remember all your names.
There were a ton of great folks.
It was fun. Families coming with kids,
Yep.
so it was a great event. While I'm thanking people, I want to thank Patreon folks. So we have some new Patreon names: Darren H., Rick Wallace, Cody Molyneux, I think is how you say that one. Thank you, Cody. And I wrote this down. I see this grog is getting to me now. I should be on 6 water grog for sure. I didn't even drink the whole thing. Ishliak. Ishi, thank you. Alice Mark. Will of Fortune 86. Get it? Will of, not wheel. Will of Fortune.
Clever. No.
Flecktarn 2. I think that's what I wrote down here. My writing and my eyesight aren't working so well after 4 water grog.
So,
Yes.
is that all? The
Ryan doesn't even. He's like, what? I don't drinking water.
We
over
had
here.
some water, John, okay? It was refreshing. We need to finish housekeeping real quick. We're going to Martin Station.
Martin Station's coming up, not this weekend, but the weekend after this weekend. What is it, 10th, 11th? Something like
Yes.
that. Martin Station, Ewing, Virginia, way
way out there on the western tip of Virginia, right at the Cumberland Gap area. An amazing site, a wonderful event, great set of people. You won't find better. If you're in that area, you want to check out that event. There's not a lot of big cities right there in that area, but it is a wonderful site and so many great things going on. And they do a really great, they do some great first-person stuff there at that site. So I really recommend it. That's the Wilderness Road, I think, is the
Wilderness
actual
Road State
park.
Yep.
I think it's Virginia State Park, and the Martin Station is sort of a piece inside the park. So the whole park isn't historic, but the Martin Station part is. Can't recommend that event enough.
Yeah.
There's so many great things going on there. So that'll be a good one. And we'll be there. We'll be walking around. You won't be, you'll find us. You'll find us.
Yep.
What else am I missing?
The catalogs.
Catalogs. If you're interested in a one of our brand new catalogs, you can go to our website and request a catalog down at the bottom corner of the page. We're sending out a batch right now, so the next batch will take a little bit of time to build up, but you can request a catalog. We've worked on this long and hard. Lots of really cool, great pictures and fun products.
All right.
I'll throw that into the chat real quick.
Yeah.
I have a few more donations.
Good.
If we do those real quick.
Good.
All right, and then
Let's do it.
you just get ready for lightning round, I guess.
Yeah, we'll have a
'cause
lightning
time's
round coming up.
Yep. All right. Thanks everyone. This has been an awesome bunch of questions. Okay, where were we? I think Reconfo was the last one. Tech Plus One, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
James Keebler, thank you. Do you have any plans to visit Fort Ligonier or Fort Necessity in the future? Nancy Gross, thank you. Wait, I'm waiting. Thank you. Your vids make me hungry. Greetings from Poland. Thanks. Pat Putnam. Exactly, Ryan. Watering down booze is deserving of the 7th circle of hell.
Yes.
From Dante's Inferno.
Yeah. Thank you.
Keltoid 5, thank you.
Thank you.
How did they take out the trash on land and on sea? Were there things that you did not just throw away? And then Sue O'Connor again, thank you. And she's asking about the stinky package. I think she's referring to that. The episode we're probably going to shoot next week.
Yeah, I'm hoping to
Hopefully.
get to that next week.
It smells worse now than it did. I don't know how that's possible.
That can't be.
Can't even
Dude.
imagine. Gross.
He showed it to me the other day.
Yeah.
Where have you
Yeah,
been
yeah,
storing
yeah,
it?
yeah.
It's like in the
It's very difficult to figure out where to store this. It is very difficult.
Is
It's
this like hung up in a tree in your property?
well, I put it out in the horse barn because it was like, I can't put it there, and there's no way I could put it in the house, and I'm worried about raccoons coming, and it is difficult.
I don't even know if raccoons would want this. Like, ugh.
Oh yeah, they would love it.
Ugh.
They would love it. Ligonier, Fort Ligonier, Fort Necessity. I have had Ligonier on my schedule to try to get to, and we were on vacation. I was going to take a day and go there, and I was unable to last year. And Fort Necessity, they're all these places are on my to-do list. I just don't have enough days in the year that I can get away from all the things I have to do do it. But yes, they're on my list. I would love to be there. They're Fort Ticonderoga. There's hundreds of just amazing historic sites out there. Truly, they're hidden. They're like beautiful gems, hidden that nobody knows about. People drive by them every day. You can see sometimes if you're at the site, you can see like an interstate. Right over there. 3/4 of a mile away.
Yeah.
Thousands of people driving by every day don't even know it's there. It is scary. Poland, thank you.
Taking out the trash?
Yeah, taking out the trash. This is one of those weird things that you kind of get to in history, where one of the most interesting things when you run onto an archaeological site are the trash pits where they throw things away. That is like the treasure trove of an historic site or an archaeological site, because so many weird and random things end up there, and it's sort of in a layer, right, from oldest to newest, and in a compressed layer. So normally in a historic site or a archaeological site, keep saying wrong. This is grog. I blame that. You kind of get a better range of items in this lowest to newest, and so really interesting things get thrown out in the trash. Things that you don't understand why they would throw them out, or maybe sometimes the trash pit is actually a privy and things have whoops fallen in. Like, you dropped your cell phone into the toilet and like, I'm not gonna go get that. Same thing happens in the 18th century. Wonderful things fall down in the privy and no one wants to retrieve them. That happens, and so you get these really interesting things in privy pits or in trash pits. Did you not want to throw away things? Did they reuse things all the time, rework them? Yes. So it is weird to see the things that show up in trash pits when you think that they would have retrieved them. So it's a mixed answer. Sometimes amazing things get thrown in the trash, and then most of the time most of those things get reworked. And that's why it's so amazing what you do find in a trash pit. There you go.
All right, we ready to do the...
Was that the last question?
No, we have
so.
lightning.
Lightning
so,
round. Yeah, for the donations, let me triple check. But yeah,
For some reason I was thinking there was one more, but I guess
no, we're good.
Okay.
Thanks everyone.
All right, here we go. Lightning round. Can you get dehydrated from grog?
I am not a scientist or a medical professional, so I will not give advice on that.
Are you planning on making any more videos like Maggie's?
I really hope so. I would love to be able to make more pieces like that. Maybe a little different. There are not too many people that do that kind of a presentation. She does such an amazing job. You will see her on the channel in the near future doing some other pieces.
Did they sweeten any bitter drinks with lead?
Sugar of lead, yes. Sometimes that's one of the things they would fake wine up with. So they wanted to make, adulterated wine or things that they would just kind of put together. Yeah, sugar of lead. Yep.
Did they steal shoes and gear from battlegrounds?
Oh, yeah. Well, steal? Well, if they're dead already, you're not really stealing from a dead person.
That's something to talk to Maggie about.
So, yeah, she would love to talk to you for about 15 minutes about taking people's teeth out and their hair out and their shoes and whatever you can find in their pockets. And yep. Mm-hmm.
Was there chewing gum or anything similar to that in the colonies?
You hear about chewing on sassafras bark, twigs, roots, but gum? Not that I know of.
Would they carry rifles on a ship for the crow's nest instead of just smoothbores?
Probably later, 19th century, but not in the 18th century. You're going to be using smoothbores.
And my last one, have you ever been to Colonial Williamsburg?
Yes, but it's been quite a number of years. I would love to go there again. I had a great conversation with Frank there, the head of Foodways, last year. So I'm hoping I should. Frank's a person to connect with here soon.
And yes, we're going to be doing more of the Nutmeg Academy videos.
Yeah, we've got a lot of that kind of stuff planned.
That was kind of like a test video.
Yeah.
And I think it went well, so we want to keep going.
Yeah, we've got some great fun stuff in the hopper. We love it. I just can't wait to get to it. It's like time can't go fast enough, but it goes way too fast.
I think that's everything. No donations.
Okay.
We covered housekeeping.
Well, I'm going to take a rest from this. And thank you guys for all you do. I loved the fact that when we went to Fort Frederick, we had all these great folks come in and talk to us, folks that watch the Nutmeg Tavern or just watch the channel in general. And it was so much fun to put a face to some of you guys out there. And I know that connecting with you, like if I had you all in a room now, we would have a blast. It would be great. Right. I wish the tavern was big enough so that you could all come in here and we could get together and talk about these fun, great topics, great questions. So I truly want to thank all you guys for all your totally amazing support. Watching videos, commenting, super chat, whatever you do. Thank you so much. Thanks for watching.